And we are now recording. So, welcome everyone to the Best Practices Contact Management webinar, the latest in our series. We just have a few more before we hit December. It's hard to believe we're saying December already, before we have all of our back to basics wrapped up. Let me start off with my disclaimer that I always say that today we will be using a sandbox server, which is full of fake students and fake information. No real students or data is being shared in this video, and any likeness to any real person is purely coincidental. So contact management was a request by many districts to have a conversation about best practices and kind of some of the reports and functionalities that we have when it comes to contacts and all of the items that we can kind of address with contact management inside of PowerSchool SIS. Now, I will say some people have some customizations in their SIS, so it might be slightly different, but we're going to talk about kind of core PowerSchool and how all of the contacts work together inside of here, things that we need to be looking out for when we're adding contacts to students, how to make sure that we can put, multiple students on a single contact so they don't have to log into different accounts to see their individual students when they're over in the parent portal, and so forth. So what I want to start out with first is going to an actual student record. So I'm going to leave the start page up because I'm actually going to come back to it in just a few, and I'm going to go to our good old favorite Mickey Mouse. So when it comes to contact management, we're all familiar with what we like to call the unlimited contacts inside of here, which is located on the student profile page and under the contact management screen. Now, one thing that I do want to bring up is that on the demographics page, there are also some contact fields that you might see in your district. Now, I will preface this with saying many districts have cut this off because there are some legacy fields. When you scroll down on the original demographics page, we have these fields called father, guardian, and mother. These are fields that came in the original version of PowerSchool before the unlimited contact management screen was out there. Many people who used PowerSchool years before Alabama came on board built out very customized contacts pages because that contact management did not exist and these were the only contact fields that they had. Well, for those who, when we started, had the contact management, these fields were still there. Here recently in an update, there is a place that you can go in district setup to turn these fields off because these fields can cause issues in your contact management. We have seen contacts get duplicated with these fields being filled out because unfortunately, whenever you put any information in these screens right here, it automatically creates a contact over in contact management on this student record, which is not always what you want to do, especially if that contact maybe exists in your contacts table and you just need to associate the already contact there. This has been the culprit of many, many duplicate contact records across the state we've seen in the last 4 years. So our recommendation is that you do not use these fields. In fact, not even populate any of these fields with data. So on this right here, I would not even want that in there. Now, with having that in there, it will automatically associate an original contact type to a student record. When that original contact type is associated with the student record, it is going to transfer across districts if this student moves from District A to District B, even if the district has in their ETS transfer settings turned off for contacts to transfer over. Original contact types of mother and father are going to come across anyway. So the only way we're ever going to get contacts to truly stop transferring if a district does not want them to transfer is if every district turns off these fields, does not have any information in these fields, and do not use that original contact type of mother or father. There is nothing that we at the state level use original contact types for. I know some districts use third-party messaging systems that pull still from some of these legacy fields. I always know that when they start asking about where's the guardian field at and things such as that. So conversations that are really suggested that you're had with some of your third-party integrations is that they move from using these legacy fields here over to the true contact management type. So if you're wondering how to turn these fields off so that you can maintain all contacts over in the contact management area, let me show you that quickly before we start diving into the contact management. So at district office, on district management, district setup, under this additional system preferences, if you scroll down below, There is this right here. Disable original contact types mother, father, emergency, and guardian. If you check this box and submit this page, then when I go back to Mickey Mouse's screen and I refresh this screen, when I scroll past these demographics, notice I no longer have those fields of mother, father, and guardian on there. So that takes them out of the queue so people don't have to worry about putting things on this page and putting things over in contact management. So now with that turned off, we are going to control all of our contacts for our records over here on the contact management screen. So as you'll see with Mickey Mouse, I currently have some contacts listed on him. Now let's talk about what these contacts mean. Now, when it comes to entering in these contacts, notice we have arrows that can move contacts up and down in the list. So if I want to swap the order and put Squidward above Russ and put Squidward above Brian, that's contact position 1 and 2. Some of you have to pay very careful attention to contact positions. For others, it does not matter what position a contact is in. Again, some third-party companies, when they're pulling information from contact management, pull it based on priority. So priority 1 would mean whoever is in this first position of the contact record. Priority 2 would be that person in the second position, and so forth. So you would have to know within your individual district if you have a third party company that you are exporting data into that is using that priority order, because if you do, then you would have to make sure in your district that you have those contacts in a specific order, and that when your registrars or whoever it is that's putting in your enrollments of these contacts, have them in the order that is expected, or else you're going to get those phone calls from parents saying, hey, I was supposed to receive the XYZ messenger phone call and did not receive it. Why not? And it could be because they got out of order. Other people are using what I'm going to call the flags on the student. And so when you hit this little pencil icon beside a contact that has already been created, we have these different indicator flags. So first we have a start and an end date, which tells you when this parent or whoever it is to be associated with this student. So right now I've got Stacy Royster, who is associated with Mickey Mouse with a start date, but no end date. So that means I'm an actively associated contact to the student. If I want to show that a contact had been associated but is no longer, then I can always put an end date on it. So if a parent swapped an emergency contact from being Squidward SquarePants to, Snow White, then I could end date Squidward to still keep that historical record that they were in there, or you can choose to delete it out. That's completely up to you and your district as how you want to manage that, but that's what the start and end dates are there for. Then we have these indicators. Is this contact a person who has custodial or has custody of this student? You have custodial paperwork for this person, then you would want to check that box. Do they live with this? Does this student live with this contact? Then you would want to check that box. Is this contact authorized to pick this student up from school? A lot of these are indicators that you use individually in your own district policies as to who can receive communication, who can actually, check the student out, and so forth. Is this contact an emergency contact? Now, I will say when using an emergency contact, some districts are really about checking that box on everybody, including the custodial guardians, which is not really the intention of this. It's really for anybody outside of those custodial guardians, because we know in a true emergency, if anything arises in the schools, we're going to call the custodial guardians first. I'm going to call the mother, the father, if it's the grandparent, whoever it is who has custody, that has the legal access to that kid, that's who we're going to try to call first. If in an absence of those persons we cannot get a hold of them, that is when we then go to these emergency contacts. And a lot of times we have those emergency contacts as people who can also check that student out of school. We've all seen the enrollment records where, you ask for mother, father, or guardians, and then you say, now list 3 people who we can contact in an emergency or who can check the student out if the mother or father cannot be here, to do so. And that's the intention of this. So you really wouldn't want to check this on custodials and emergencies, just emergencies, so that you can get, good list of your contacts when you're trying to run them. Now, receives mail. This one has a very specific intention for us in Alabama because of our special programs use. Receives mail is going to populate all of those contacts over in special programs if this checkbox is marked on my parents. So if Mickey Mouse has an IEP and I'm filling out my IEP forms over in special programs and I need those contacts to pop up in that drop down list, they're only going to pop up if this is a person who receives mail and they have an active contact record. And I'll show you that active contact box in just a moment. Now, some people also use this to be those who legitimately, receive the mail in the district. Just keep in mind, it has an alternative consequence if you use it in that respect because we are using it for that flag inside of special programs. Now, if you notice that you are filling out a form in special programs and you expect a contact to show up in the drop down and they don't, and you go, oh, I forgot to put the check box on here. If you come into SIS, check the box. You have to wait overnight for it to export out of SIS and into special programs before it will populate in that drop down screen. So that's something that a lot of people forget, is that this is not instantaneous to read over to special programs. It is an overnight export to read over there and get that person to populate in that drop down list. Now, ignore this manage contacts because that is going to be something that is part of a plugin that we are working on over in our sandbox. Now, the notes can be anything that you want to put in this area right here about this contact type. And also, you can tag the original contact type. If you had this person over in those legacy fields in that mother, father, or guardian, it will automatically tag the emergency contact type with them. You do not have to have an emergency, or not emergency, original contact type for anything that we use in the state of Alabama. So a lot of people have gone in and blanked those out just again because of the transferring across the state where you might not want these to transfer, so that you don't see a original contact type on there because there is no reason to have to go and put that on there. Let me submit that real quick just so I can save that change. I'm going to pop this right back out. And notice we have two other tabs up here as well. So first off is the all. This would show you any record of all of the different contact entries. So if I were to end date this and start a new one, it would keep me all of them. So I kind of have that change history of, well, from this date to this date, they were this. From this date to this date, they were this. This page also comes into play quite a bit if you are consolidating contacts from level data, which we'll go over in a little while as well. If you have two contacts that you consolidate and they both have flags on them, it's going to ask for one to take precedence on it. So you're going to see a little error message with a triangle that you can only resolve by picking kind of a source of truth from this all page right here. And then we have our data access. Has this person, have you given them that parent account? Have they logged in? Are they going to receive any kind of information? So this tells me that yes, this person can access the student data and email. So they do have a web account turned on. And this is also where if the parent is marking over there that they want to receive those daily emails that come out, because the parents can sign up for those over in the web portal to get a daily email on attendance records, on grades, it'll show you. We've had some people say, can I go in and set this for the parent? And technically you can in here, but you really want to talk about and discuss your policies in your district before you go set that. So if I said, yes, I want them to receive, weekly a summary of current grades and attendance, or if there's any additional emails that they want it to be sent out, because maybe you only allow the parents, access to the parent portal, but some parents said, hey, I'm military, I'm going to be deployed, I need my mom, which is the student's grandmother, to receive these emails. Can you put them on an email right here? Then yeah, you technically could come in here and put a separate email in here that will then also receive those emails on behalf of the parent. The parent can do them over there on their side, but you can also work with these on the admin side as well and submit that information in. So that's all that you can see up under this pencil. Now, when it comes to the actual record that is here, let's go into the record and look at what is actually constructed inside the contact record itself. So if I click into this, then notice I do start with my prefix, my first, my middle, and my last names. Now, this is where you want to have very, very concrete and defined policy for your district as to how these names are entered. Because when names are not entered consistently, that again can show duplicate contacts out there when you don't mean to have duplicate contacts in there. So I know there's a lot of districts who say, please give me the legal government name of your contacts, which is pretty much good when it comes to the custodials because a lot of times y'all ask for their IDs, and so you put that name that's on the driver's license on there. But when they ask, for those three little blanks of the emergency contacts, Stacy Royster could be, Stacy, could be Lee, could be whatever they're known by in the community. And so you don't always get that good data. And so what they told one school was Stacy, they told another school was Lee, just because they know them by different names depending on their associations. And we see that all the time. There are ways to find those, and I'm going to show you that in some of our level data information. So make sure that you kind of have some kind of rule about how you want to ask about those names and put those names in for any kind of validation that you can do. You have a spot to put their gender, their date of birth, their race, a preferred language for them, inside of there, and then what employer. And again, this is all district policy as to what you require to be put in here. We always like more information on these individuals, so the more you can get out of them, the better. But as far as the state, there is no requirement to say you must have this and this and this enter. This is all local LEA level and what you want to have on your records. Now, this checkbox right here is that active checkbox that I was referring to that must be checked in order for a user who's had that receives mail checkbox checked to actually populate over in special programs. If this is not an active contact record, then it will not go over. So there's two requirements to get one of these contacts over into special programs. They must have that receives mail checked, and this active box must be checked, denoting they are an active contact at the time of the student record. Now, each one of these little areas can be collapsed and can be expanded. So we'll kind of collapse them all and go through them one by one. First one is we have additional information, and this is just extra information that sits in those core tables on there if you wanted to, put on your contacts you could. Country of origin, do they need interpreter, education level? Some people collect this, some don't, some do because of grants. Again, district preference on whether that is in there or not. Web account access. So if a web account has been created for this user, in this case, yes, the account is enabled, so I have it. This means I can log into the parent portal over there. I can edit this account from here. So if I have a parent that says, hey, I've locked myself out of my account, I don't remember what it is, I can't get the password email to reset, you can always come in here and issue a new password to give to them, and it will even get them to change that password once they log into. You can check the email account that they have associated with it. Up under the web account access, we have students. Who are all of the students that this user is connected to? And this is where you want to make sure that when you're looking across your district, that when you have parents who have multiple students across multiple schools, you do not want them to have a contact record with just one kid on there. You want to make sure you have one contact record with all of the kids that they should have data access to. So if I notice on this student right here, I've got 5 students who are actually connected to me. I've got my son, Mickey Mouse, who it says I'm the mother, and I've got data access. I also have my court appointed guardian to Brandon right here, and so I have data access to him. But I have 3 other students that are under me that I don't have data access for, but hey, they're kids of good friends of mine who are in the school, and I'm their emergency contact where if I needed to go check them out because a parent could, then I would be able to, but I don't need their data access. But what this does mean is that when I log in as a parent to the parent portal, I am going to see both of these students on my one account. I'm not, as a parent, having to log into this account for Brandon and this account over here for Mickey. And so just to show what that looks like, let me pop in an incognito window and log in from the parent side. Because I know y'all have parents that ask about this quite a bit, and we still see some that are kind of separated out there. If I log in, I see all of my students up here that are connected. So if I want to look at Mickey's information, I've got it highlighted here. If I want to see Brandon, all I do is I click that at the top, and now I'm looking at everything of Brandon's information. So if you have your parents and your students linked correctly, they are able to see all of their students under one login, flipping them back and forth up here in this header. And this is that update that we put out to help CMP where they can now see their student ID numbers in the parent portal and in the student portal should they need to. So let's minimize this back. Now, if I needed to adjust any of these from this area right here, like I want to adjust everything on Stacy's students that she's connected with, I have this same pencil on all of them that looks just like I did a while ago with Mickey, but looks across all these students at once. So if I needed to update any of these, I could right here. If I see that I have a student who has been associated with this contact that no longer needs to be associated with this contact, I could do one of two things. I can either go in and end date it, or I could, if this was a mistake, use this little minus right here and it says, hey, I'm about to delete this relationship altogether. And it says you may also optionally change any access or IDs to prevent the contact from accessing the student's information again. Well, this one never had a contact in there, so I'm just going to say delete only. And now that contact is gone and there's no record of it. So you would need to make that decision of, do you want to delete the contacts off, or do you want to end date them to keep them as a record of once being associated inside of there. When it comes to phone numbers, again, there are sort orders on here because some third-party programs do like to pull by sort order. What's the first phone number you have on there for the that contact, or the second phone number? Some actually look at it by the phone number type, just depending on how you have integrated with your third-party programs. I can come in here and edit. Now, when I go to edit these phone numbers, what all is on here? Well, I can choose my type, and right now we have a code set of these, so daytime, home, mobile, work, or other, that you can choose. Again, they're all choosing by your district policies, so you would want to check them in the way that you want. The phone number that is on there, if there's an extension, and then there are some check boxes here to, if they consent to receive text messaging. If you want to keep that information inside of SIS, some of y'all keep it in SIS, some of you keep it in your messaging systems. Some people, your third-party messaging system looks to see if that checkbox is on there for that contact record to know if it should be pulled in to receive text messages. Can't talk at 1 o'clock today. Those text messages. So it's just really on whether you use that with your third party program or not, whether you want to check that box, again, up to you and your district policy. When there are multiple phone numbers, you can select one to be a preferred number, so that, again, if your third party messaging system is needing to know what is a preferred, you have that as an indicator that you can pull out to send to them. So you can keep multiple phone numbers on your contacts for your students. Same for email addresses. You can have multiple email addresses on here. When you're entering email addresses, you choose which type. We just have two types, whether it's a personal email or a work email. And you can denote which one is a primary one if you have multiple email addresses throughout the system. Again, that might be something that your third-party messaging program, if you have one, uses to send out those email notifications that go out from the district. And then last but not least, on the contact record, we do have addresses. And just like all the other ones, you can have multiple ones on here. So if I have multiple addresses, I can choose whether it is the home, which is the physical address, or the mailing address. You have your mailing line. So what are your address, your city, your county that it's in, country, state, postal, and start and end dates. There's also the level data address validation that you can use. Now, this right here is actually a plugin that I have installed that it kind of gives us that old iNow functionality of, if you've already got the address on the student record and you want to copy that address to the contact record you're on, you can use that copy button and it will pop it into that home or mailing address. So this is a plugin that is out on PowerSource Exchange. If you're interested in having this one installed into your server, just shoot me an email, let me know, and I'll give you the link to that. But it is over there in PowerSource at support.powerschool.com. That just helps save a step instead of typing in addresses if you wanted to copy that in. All of these have priority order when you're on there. Now, looking at the contacts, I can add to these as much as I want. I can take them away. I can edit them. I can either delete, or I can do end dates so that I have historical views. Which process you take is really governed by your district procedures and policies. So I'd make sure I had clear definitions in the district of what your expectations are and how you want this contact management data to be kept and stored. Now I'm going to open up another student. I'm going to go to Wednesday Adams right here, and we're going to look at her contacts. So when I am on Wednesday's contacts, I notice that she's got quite a few contacts on here as well. I want to add a contact. So I'm going to come over here to add, and I'm going to search the name. Now, I can search in first names, last names, partial names, however I want it to, but the more information you have, the more exact it's going to go on there. So let's just say that I have Bobby Royster that I am going to search. Now, if you know street addresses, you can put those in there. Sometimes we are just doing it by names. We're not really putting all this, but it's up to you. You can actually search kind of on a student record where if I wanted to say, just show me every contact that has a C, starts with a C, you could do that as well. If I wanted to search for Royster, I could type in Royster and hit search. And I see that I have Stacy Royster that pops up here. But Stacy's not who I wanted. I wanted Bobby Royster. But I think it's odd that Bobby's not showing because I know that Bobby is in as a contact because when I was over here, I saw on an earlier entry. So if I know that the contact is in there somewhere, but they're not showing, then these right here are going to need to be adjusted. One of the things is when you're searching is a lot of times it might be that contacts were stopped being used by a user at one point in time and they have been inactivated, which is okay to do. If they are inactive, you have to tell the program that you want it to search both active and inactive to pull back in a contact should you need to associate it with a record. So I always advise when you are searching to click this box that says include active. Now, I know there's times that you search and this only show access accounts comes checked. I would never search with that right there unless you are specifically looking for somebody who has an account associated with a kid that has data access. That's the only time that checkbox needs to be checked. So if you're ever going to do a search for a contact to associate with a student and you see this checked, uncheck it because you could have people hidden by having that only show those and it would show a very minute number compared to everybody that's actually in your database. So now that I have include inactive checked, I'm going to hit search and notice now I do have Bobby Royster who shows up right here. Now I think here's an important point to note. When I searched for Royster, do you notice how it showed Stacy here, but the checkbox is grayed out? When it searched and it showed Bobby, it is not grayed out. If you ever perform a search on a contact and it shows them in the list, but it grays it out from checking, it means that the contact is already associated with the account. Now, let's go back to Mickey right here, and I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to go find Royster, and I'm going to say include inactive, and I'm going to search. So notice both Stacy and Bobby are grayed out. That would tell me as a user, these two are already associated with this student's record that I am currently on at this moment. So Stacy's already a contact and Bobby's already a contact. So I'm like, I don't need to add them in, correct? But if I come here and look, Stacy's the only one in the list. Well, where's Bobby at? That's when I'm going to look up here and notice that there is a +1 that has been archived. So I'm going to click this box to show all, and sure enough, there's Bobby. He's still associated with Mickey, but he had an end date of 3/12/2023. So that means for some reason we stopped counting him as being an active contact on this record at this moment. If I need to reactivate it, I can come in here, I can take this end date off and put a new start date, of 11/10/2025 if I need to, and submit. And now it stops being italicized. And notice my show all is 0 because I no longer have an archived record. So it's real important to know that these will toggle on and off to be selectable only if this contact you have searched for has not already been associated with that student at some point in time. I've seen people come search for a contact, it be unselectable here. And so they're like, okay, I'll just create a new contact since it won't let me select Stacy. And that just duplicates and makes your contact management a little messier. In this case, know to back out and go find probably an archive contact that's in that show all list. But in this situation, Bobby's who I'm going for, and I want to add Bobby to Wednesday Adams record. So when I select Bobby Royster, and I come down here, it's going to actually give me the drop down of the relationship, so I can go ahead and select the relationship out of that code set table of Bobby to Wednesday Adams, and I'm going to say Bobby is Wednesday's uncle. And if this is somebody who can have data access, you can go ahead and check that box here. Probably not going to do it for uncle. If this had been father, if this had been custodial parent, then yes, I would probably go ahead and check that data access button, but I'm not going to do it for this record here. And I'm going to move my level data validation out of the way, and I'm going to click submit. And so what it does is it creates Bobby as a contact record and throws them to the bottom of the screen. So every time you add that new contact, it's going to add to the bottom of the screen for Wednesday. So Wednesday has lots of people that anybody can contact to get in touch with should we need to discuss or something happens with Wednesday. If I need to make any adjustments to Bobby, well, here's where I can go in and make those adjustments. Like we said earlier, this is a person who is going to be a school pickup and is an emergency contact to them. And that's all that they're going to be. So I'm going to hit submit. And if I needed to go into Bobby and adjust anything on Bobby's record, I would update it here. Now, here's something to also keep in mind. When you are using these multiple contacts, so again, if Bobby is connected to Mickey and to Wednesday, well, then that means if I update something on Bobby's record, if I come here to phone numbers and I say, oh, well, he also has a phone number that is a home phone number that is 555-555-5555, then I could submit that in there, but that means that everybody across all schools that has a student connected would also see that. So also keep in mind, if I go in here and go, oh, this isn't the mobile number, it is XYZ, that you're changing it across all contacts on there. So again, make sure you have procedures and processes in place to make sure you are verifying information correctly, because as our students are all connected to this one contact, it changes it for that entire contact record, and anybody with any other student sees that update to this record. So just be very, very cognizant of that in any changes that you make. So when it comes to adding contacts, just be very careful when you're doing that search. Make sure you're searching active and inactive inside of there. Make sure that if you are wanting to add, that you use, any kind of convention that you want to. If I only know certain letters, I can search for certain letters and it will still populate anything in that area of it. So you want to be very thorough in your contact results. Again, always make sure they include inactive is checked, and rarely, if not ever, will you have this checked. I'll be honest. If you were adding in contacts, this is not one I would search for. I would always make sure that one right there is unchecked to make sure that duplication does not occur. Now, once we get the contacts in there, let's talk about finding contacts, cleaning up contacts. So I'm going to go back to the overall screen, get rid of some of these tabs. And I want to talk about some really nice reports that we have to help keep your contact data good data. Over in level data, in our data validation, there are two tabs of contact reports that we have. So first I want to take a look at this contact list. There's 2 pages. Now this will tell me all kinds of information that you may or may not need to act on. So first, do you have active contacts associated to only inactive students? So if you really wanted to hammer in on making sure that all of your contacts are active only if students are active or inactive versus active, you would be able to find some of those mismatches in here, list the students, find out who the contacts are. And if you're like, oh, well, I need to go and inactivate those contacts, then you could if you wanted to. Is it a big deal if those are left in there? Not really, unless you have some third-party program that is specifically just pulling every active contact there is, whether they're associated with an active student or not. If that's the case, then yeah, you're going to want to clean those up. If not, it's completely up to you and whether you want to keep your data like top tier or, hey, I'm good with the 80% of it. Contacts without any contact information. Now, that might be something you want to know. If all you've got is a contact name, but you don't have an address, a phone, or an email, then yeah, I probably need something on there, or else the contact really does me no good. I've got to have contact information. So this would tell me my 12 contacts that I've got a name in, but nothing else, and I would need to go and try to find that information on those users so I could then go update that information. Contacts without a name. Well, that's an interesting one. So what are these no names? Now, this can happen from all kind of different things. This could be where something got orphaned, a contact was deleted and it left an ID record. It could be that it's something that came over weird from an import that came in. So you would really want to investigate those, because this does you no good as having a contact list. Those probably want to be deleted out. If you want to know what all contacts do I have in here that don't have a phone number associated, you can get that list and adjust there. Contacts with data access, but yet I've given them an end date that says they shouldn't have access to the student anymore. That's some that you probably want to pay attention to. Who are you still giving data access to, but you said they can't be associated with the student? There might be a legit legal case for that. Then there might be some non-legit cases that you want to get those cleaned up with. Contacts that are just in there but have no students associated. If you needed to grab all of those to go delete them out, you could, or inactivate them, whatever you needed to do. You can use this report to go and find that. Missing or invalid addresses, emails, and phone numbers. Inactive contacts associated with active students. That would help me go find some that maybe might be causing an issue with special programs if they're marked inactive and shouldn't be. All kind of different reasons to use that list. On the second page, contacts where you don't have a first name in there. Missing invalid contact relationships to the student. So you've got a contact in there, but you didn't say what the relationship was in that original drop down. If they were mother, if they're father, if they're aunt, uncle, emergency, however. No address record, no name contacts not associated. But this one right here is probably the biggest one of all of them. And if I said I wanted my registrars to check any of them, it would be that one right there. Students you have in your database that you have absolutely no contact listed for. That is a safety and security issue. So I would say everybody needs to lay eyes on that rule right there for any student. Like, this is bad data right here. I should not have 4,000 students that don't have any contacts. In your district, you want to find everyone, because you want to make sure you have a solid call to somebody should something happen to that student. So I would always come in here and go, who did we forget to do an import for, or deliver contacts, or enter contacts in? That's the biggest list that you can use as far as getting your data entered in on your students correctly and in a timely manner. Now, our second tab right here is this contact reports tab. When it comes to the contact reports, this is where you can go and actually help find some duplicated contacts. So let's kind of run through them and what you might feel are good for you to have, and what are some that are like, why would I want that? So for example, contacts with a matching address. Now, it could have big numbers here, so it gives this run. It doesn't always just populate a number. If I hit the run, I see I have none. Now, I'm going to tell you, that one could be a, maybe it's good, maybe it's not. But you think about your married couples who have kids, they're all going to flag on this. So those are expected to have the same address. So if you see that that is something that is a useful rule to you, for you to have, you might want to leave it in there. If you're like, no, because it's gonna be too much to weed through, because all of my married parents are gonna show on there. If you're like, I don't even want my people to see that one. If you are a level data validation administrator, you can actually turn the rule off so that it is not seen by your users, and they don't have to address it thinking that there's something wrong with those and need to be worked on. So some of these contact rules are very good to have in there. Some of them are not. Now notice once that's disabled, you can click on it and re-enable it, but it will then take it where it doesn't even portray anything over on your end user side. Contacts with matching email address. Well, maybe you want to see that, but again, maybe you could have a two-parent household that share an email address. So those could be valid or could not. Let's look at some that maybe All right, contacts with a matching name and phone number. Okay, now that might be an interesting one. Oh, so if I run this, I do get a result here. So if I list this, it's going to say, hey, I've got 2 Veronica Washingtons in here. That could be a very possible duplicate contact. So if I have 2 different instances of this name and they've got the same phone number and it's got 2 active contacts, well, let's go to this consolidate contacts link and see, do I need some cleanup here? So this tells me I've got this Veronica Washington with this phone number associated with this student, and I've got this Veronica Washington with this phone number associated to this student. So I've got this person has been entered twice. So this very much tells me it could have been that they were entered in on that legacy guardian field, and then somebody went and entered them in contact management and it effectively duplicated them. Well, I don't need 2 records on there. So I can choose to consolidate this and only see them on once in our student record. Now you would choose which one of these is the master, so I can choose the top one or the bottom one. Here is my advice. Do any of them have access account with a checkbox? Okay, right now, neither one of these have data access to the student. But if one of them did, I would want the master to be the one that has the data access, because if not, when you consolidate and you don't choose that one as the master, the parents are going to receive an email saying, hey, your access to your student just got turned off. How many of y'all have gotten calls from parents that are saying, hey, I just got an email saying my access has been turned off and I don't know why? And y'all are like, well, we don't know why. We didn't do anything. I bet you somebody consolidated some contacts and didn't choose the data access as the master record. So if I choose this as the master record and hit consolidate all data or just keep master, in this case, it's the exact same thing. So I could just do keep master, but I always choose consolidate all. I go to review. If there had been some extra data, like one of them had an email address as well and one had an address, what it does is it would pull it all to this one screen for this user, and I could then come in here and adjust whatever I needed to as I needed to. So now, instead of this student having that person twice, they now are only on there one time. And if I look at my contact management, I see, oh, I've got another on here. So I didn't take that one off. Why didn't it take that one off? I'm gonna have to dig into that because that should, oh, I haven't submitted it yet. Submit consolidation. Got to do that step. That's important. Did it submit? Am I frozen? What happened? Let's see if it's submitted. If I refresh the screen now, do I just have one Veronica? Yep, now I just have my one Veronica. So once you go through and do that, it will take that duplicate off of there and only have that one user across the board. And this could be for if this user had been on multiple children, same thing on there. So you would want to make sure that you really pay attention to these. And like I said, some rules are going to be really good at giving you possible duplicates and some of them won't. Contacts with a matching phone number. All right, here I've got 2. So here I've got right here 3. So if I do consolidate contacts right here, let's see what I get. So all of these share that same phone number of 5555555. So here's where I need to do some little investigative work. Do I really think these are the same person, or do I think maybe somebody just hadn't updated a phone number on them? In this case, I can see that they are attached to different students. So this contact is associated to Mickey and Wednesday. This one is to Brandon. This one is to Mickey. So maybe this is a case where this one should be excluded because I think that's a separate person altogether that just might have the wrong phone number entered. This phone number right here, because we do know sometimes parents swap phone numbers very frequently. Let's just say that. But maybe this is a case where one school gave Bobby Royster as the emergency contact for Mickey Mouse, but another school or somebody else gave Squidward SquarePants as the name, because maybe it's a nickname for the neighbor down the street and somebody knew the legal name and somebody knew a nickname, and so you've got 2 records on there. If you find out that that's the case because maybe they have the exact same address or something like that, that's where you would want to merge these 2 together So by me excluding this one, I can say merge these two records together. I choose which one I want to keep as the master. So even if the names are different, it's going to merge them together and just keep this name up here. And this is where, if I have the account access, that's the one I definitely want to keep and then do any updates on afterwards. So in this case, I would keep the master to be Bobby Royster. And this is going to pull all of this information. So it's going to pull this mailing address and this email address into Bobby's account. So if I hit review, it's going to show you what the consolidated record will look like so that you can agree to submit this and consolidate it or cancel out and not do any of it. So there's the name. It's got the two students. And it tells me there's a conflict. This is where I was talking about earlier. If I've got this conflict on Mickey, if I hit this pencil, I'm going to look on this all page and it says, hey, there's two different records here. One, and they both have no end date. So which one has more information? Well, this one has more than this one. So I'm going to say get rid of this one in the merge. That way I don't have that duplication and have that error. So I'm going to hit OK there, and that takes care of my exclamation mark. I'm going to look at my phone numbers. Well, I don't need duplicate ones, and I know this 555 is actually a home phone, so I'm going to get rid of this one and delete it. So now I've got a home and a mobile. And if I've got two addresses, but I look at my current enrollment record and know that, oh yeah, it is now, these are correct. One is a home address and one of them is a mailing address, then I would keep both of those in there, or I could choose to adjust one, take one out. You make the changes that are needed, and notice it pulled in that email address there. So this is what the consolidated record will look like for this user that I have determined was actually the same user under two different names. And I hit submit the consolidation, and it will bring all of that together under Bobby's record and for any students associated with that user. So where I had looked at Wednesday Adams, or where I had looked at Mickey Mouse and I had a Bobby Royster and I had a Squidward, now I just have Bobby with all of that information on there. So you can absolutely use these level data validations to kind of look through your data to see if you have possible duplicates out there. Again, I can also look under those contact reports to see, who doesn't have this kind of a record, who doesn't have that kind of a record, so that if you're looking for gaps in your data, you can go and try to clean those up. Like who doesn't have an emergency record on file, who doesn't have an emergency contact. Anybody who is a mother, father, or parent but does not have an email address, and you're like, well, we want to send out email messages, so I need to make sure I have an email for everyone. Who do I need to go search one for? Who are contacts that are marked that has custody but do not have a web access account created yet, because you're really trying to get everyone into your web portal for your parents. Students with no contacts that are marked that have custody. You want to make sure you have custodials marked on your students so you know who the proper people you should be contacting on behalf of the student are. And then the last page are students with no contacts marked that they live with, students with no contacts marked as live with or has custody, and web account email addresses different from the primary email address, so that you can see if you need to add in a secondary or update an email address on a contact record. So we really do like our validation tools that help us to clean and look for gaps in our data when it comes to our contacts. And then when it comes to overall contacts, because sometimes you just need to be able to search for a contact, but you don't know what student they're associated with. Just like on this start page, we're used to searching students, staff, but there's also a contact search on here where you can search by any of these indicators. For example, how many of you have those third-party systems? The blackboards, the school messengers, the remind, the um, final site. I'm trying to think what Parent Square, what all the big players are, all of those. And you get this phone call from a parent and they say, hey, I just received a call at, 555-5555, and I don't have a student in your system. Why are you calling me? So now you've got to go figure out what contact has this phone number to figure out who they called and who you need to update. A lot of you have been going to the school messenger or going to Parent Square and trying to look in there when you can also come here into SIS. So if you ever got that phone call, I would come here to contacts, come to phone number, and I love doing a contain search. So it says, hey, show me any contact that has a phone number that contains 5555. And then I'm going to hit search. So all 7 of these contacts have this number that have 5555, and that can possibly tell you who your third party program actually called out. So if you know these people are the custodials or the emergency contacts, you know it's probably going to be somebody who had custody, and you can go find who that is. This works a lot of times. People need to know who are all of the, contacts that live down XYZ street. I can do contains Cherry, and I don't have anybody who lives on a Cherry Street, but if I did, it would be right here. So you can do searches amongst your contacts. You can do all this same thing with students as well, just FYI. But these drop downs really help you to find them. If I needed to know anybody with the last name Royster, I can do basic contact and select them. I can look for contacts that are active and inactive. If I'm like, show me all of the inactive contacts that I have in my system. We can do that in level data, but I can also do that here on the search. Show me all contacts that has an access account or has no access account or has an active or inactive access account. You can do multiple types of filtering inside of here. And that right there, my friends, is really all that we have when it comes to contact management. So the key to contacts are keeping them as close to legal and government names as possible so that you don't do the duplication, because we don't want nicknames in there. Using your level data validations to find those that maybe have the same information across different names so that you can consolidate those together, and making sure that you have your safety and security in place by looking for those who you have no contacts entered for at all to make sure you get some entered in on them as soon as possible. So does anyone have any questions of anything they would like to see that we have talked about with contact management? Remember, the chat is open and I'm happy to answer any questions that you may have. Any questions from anyone? What are your thoughts on expiring contacts every year? Rachel, I'll say this. I know that there's one district out there that wipes the contacts off of them every year and just delivers from their online enrollment system fresh each year, whatever the parents put in. That way they're not having to go through and try to touch and clean up those contacts. So I do know it is a practice that some districts use. I can see that being just as easy as going through and updating them from time to time and having to take off. Because let's be honest, from one year to the next, sometimes our parents don't remember the 3 emergency contacts they put in last year and they put in 3 different ones this year. So then do you want to have to go in and end date all of those when you deliver new ones, or do you have some kind of mechanism, especially if you're using online enrollment? I get that if I've got a paper copy sitting in front of me, I can look, but if you're looking at online enrollment, do you know which ones are the new ones versus which one are the old ones? Because of that, I do know that some people just go in and they clear the contacts off of all the students each year and then just reload in fresh. So it's there are people who do that. That's a very, very good question. Any other questions from anyone? Contacts is kind of it's that big necessary thing that can get really messy really quick if you don't keep your eyes on it and make sure that you have consistent data entry in there. When a parent sign up for the parent portal, they create a new contact for themselves. How do we stop that? Dorothy, so that means that you have it turned on in district office where they can create their new account. I would stop that right there. So I would make it where they cannot create their own accounts and you create them as a district and send out to them. Because that's the only way to keep that from happening. Because you're correct. If you allow them to create their own account over in the parent portal, it's going to make another contact over there in that list. So the only way to stop that is to disable the contact creation for them. And you create it from the school level and send it out. to turn off the parent portal creation. Let's see if I remember where that's at. District setting. Oh, I don't see. Is it under the additional? Yes, right here. Disable parent self-registration on the parent portal. So if you do not want them to create, and let me, where do I still have my little incognito open? I do. If I sign out. So do you see how mine just has a sign in right here? It doesn't have the create. That is what you want to make sure. So disable that parent self-registration on the parent portal. So they cannot create their own accounts. And I will say there is a plugin that a lot of the districts use, and I'll be honest, I've not used it, but I've seen it, and I do think it is kind of amazing. It's called the PAX. In fact, I have it in here. This parent portal accounts express that will show you parents who have accounts, who do not have accounts, who you can issue accounts to, who you can link a student to. It's PAX. If you look for that over in PowerSource, support.powerschool.com, and all the plugins, a lot of districts have started using this Parent Access Account Express, and it really helps to find, issue, and create those a lot easier on the PowerSchool side instead of the parent self creating. So like if I wanted to say, show me all of the, students new to the district or students without a parent access account, then it would go and find those, and I would be able to go through and, find those that just parents that have only marked to have custody and only have this and only have that. And it will tell you, whether you need to create an account for them or not. So in this case, I can see that this student and this parent has not been connected, so I could go through and create an account for them. I can reset passwords, all kind of different things. So it does make account management a little bit easier. Can this be done at school level? That's a good question, Dorothy, because like I said, I've not used this one very much. I really need to dive into it and learn this plugin, but I know a lot of districts are using it heavily. Let me see if it's over there in. No, it is not. It looks like that is a district level only thing. It looks like it's district level only. Which I can see that would make sense because you might be using it across multiple students in the district. So if you have a central PowerSchool person, then that would be something you'd want to look at. Any other questions about contacts? How many of you use those level data validations to try to clean up your duplicates out there? Or did you know that that was there? I'll be honest, I used to really live by those data validations of looking at the ones who have the same email address and the same phone number, because that's where you would catch the duplicates the majority of the time. So that matching phone number or matching email address. The street ones really didn't, but these I could usually find my duplicates on. And a lot of contacts is just simply up to district policies. And that's why I always say, make sure you look at your district policies and procedures and data governance to know how you need to make sure you're inserting data, whether you need to delete data, whether you need to indate data, and things such as that. Those are discussions to have at the district level. Any other questions? All right, I'm going to stop the recording so it can start processing.